Hello guys, I'm back. I've missed you all. So it's safe to say the Hyte Y40, which came out about 8 months ago, was a huge success for Hyte. It looked great, felt premium, and had a bunch of awesome features. So it's no wonder we now have a follow-up version, the Hyte Y40. Let's check it out right after this quick word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by bobkeys.com. You guys know the drill. You've just finished building your brand new PC, you boot it up, and bam, that hideous Activate Windows watermark appears. And the worst part is you forgot to budget $200 for an activation key from Microsoft because you spent it all on RGB. But that's okay, because you don't need to spend $200. You can pick one up from today's video sponsor, bobkeys.com, for a tenth of the price. The best part is you can use my code TT25 for 25% off, which takes this already cheap Windows 10 Pro key from around $22 to $16. If you're in the UK, that's £13. You place your order, your activation code gets added to your orders page, you whack it into the Windows activation screen, and boom, you're fully activated, no more watermarks being burned into your retinas. TT25 for 25% off, link in description. First things first, it's cheaper, coming in at $150, which puts it much closer to many other cases on the market. That said though, the build quality is very much consistent with what we found previously on the Y60. That was one thing many people liked about that case, so it's nice to see it carry over here. Solid frame, tempered glass panels, no flimsy dust fillers. Now it does share some similarities with the Y60 in terms of looks and styling. Once again, it's available in 3 colors, black, red, and white, which is the one we've got here. This time though, they've gone for a more traditional box-shaped design, but once again, you get this amazing unobstructed panoramic view of all your components. By the way, what's your guys' first impression of this case? Let me know in the comments. Alright, let's go over specs. So in general, it's a slightly cut down version of the Y60 in terms of size, fan support, and storage, with a few exceptions to things like GPU and CPU cooler clearance. The main difference being that this one isn't a dual chamber design like we had with the Y60, where the PSU sat in the back of the case. This one is a more traditional single compartment style with a PSU shroud, so there's a little less room in general, but you do get some extra depth, which is good if you're using tall air coolers. For motherboards, it'll fit anything from mini ITX all the way up to full-size ATX. Max CPU cooler height is 183mm. I've got a Deepcool AS500 here. It's fairly chonky cooler, but only 164mm. It'll fit no problems at all. Max GPU length is 422mm. We don't have that angled piece of glass this time around, so can fit much longer GPUs. We fitted an RTX 4080 in here with plenty of room to spare. Max PSU length is 224mm. Bear in mind it is going inside a shroud. We'll talk more about cable management later on. Radiator support is actually the same as the Y60, so it'll fit up to a 280mm on the side, along with a 360mm up at the top. Storage options are a bit more limited this time around. You get space for one 3.5-inch HDD or two 2.5-inch SSDs. Gone are the cool little caddies that we had on the Y60, which is unfortunate because it was one of my favorite parts of that case. But you do get this handy removable mounting plate which you can mount your hard drives to and then just reattach it to the case. Now yes, you might have noticed, for aesthetic reasons only, I've got the fans in a side exhaust setup for this video just because it looked way better, but I wouldn't recommend you do this, and in fact for the temperature test later on in the video, I switched it to an intake because that's what I'd recommend most people do, and Hyte themselves recommend this setup on their website. Speaking of fans, you can fit up to 7 in total. There's space for one 120mm in the bottom, up to 2 140mm fans on the side, 3 120mm fans up top, and one 120mm fan in the rear. Now you do get 2 120mm fans included, which come pre-installed in the bottom and rear of the case. They're not RGB or anything, but they do the job. Front I/O is great. Once again, we get 2 USB Type-A 3.2 Gen 1 ports, along with a USB Type-C 3.2 Gen 2. And of course, this is also where you'll find the power button, along with the headphone mic combo jack. Now, one cool feature of this case is the included PCIe 4.0 riser cable. This allows you to vertically mount your GPU straight out the box, and the best part is, it still has room for up to 6 half-height PCIe expansion cards behind it, so you don't have to lose out on any functionality. And yes, this is in fact the only way to mount your GPU in this case. Unfortunately, horizontal mounting is not an option. Let's talk about cable management. So one thing I was slightly concerned about when I first saw this case was the bottom intake fan, because obviously your PSU cables have got to go somewhere, and you don't want them blocking your intake. Hyte actually thought about this and implemented a cable shelf design within the PSU shroud, which you can use to tie spare cables up and out of the way so that they don't get in the way of airflow. You also get a bunch of tie down points in the rear of the case as well, and clearance behind the motherboard tray is very generous, so you shouldn't have any real issues with cable management. In fact, it was a very easy case to build in. I also like that there's lots of cutouts all over the case. This one behind the motherboard, for example, is great if you're an idiot like me and always forget to put your AIO mounting bracket on the back of your motherboard before you put it in the case. And there's also cutouts at the top, which makes it super easy to plug in stuff like your CPU power cable and RGB connectors. Overall, it's pretty well thought out, although no cable grommets this time around, which is a bit of a shame. All fan locations apart from the rear are filtered, so your top and sides are taken care of by the case panels, which have built-in dust filters. And then on the bottom of the case, we have two removable filters, one for the PSU, one for the intake fan. They just pull out like this, although they go different directions, which is a bit weird. Now, when it comes to airflow, it's actually better than the Y60, especially when it comes to vertically mounting your GPU. In fact, Hyte acknowledge on their website that the Y60 did cause thermal throttling on some GPUs when the side glass was installed, which wasn't surprising. It was a dual chamber design, space in the main chamber was limited, and your GPU fans ended up right up against the glass. That's much less of an issue this time around. There's way more clearance between the GPU fans and the glass. Now, for our test build, we were using an i7-12700K with a 360mm AIO, along with the Palette 4080 Gaming Pro OC. So on the high end of things when it comes to components, with the glass off, we were seeing idle temps of 31 degrees on the CPU and 36 on the GPU. Under full load, using an IDA64 stress test for 30 minutes, this increased to 66 degrees on the CPU and 66 on the GPU. So that's kind of the baseline temps here. Then with the glass panels on at idle, we got 34 degrees on the CPU and 34 on the GPU. And finally, under full load, 75 degrees on the CPU, so a bit warmer here, but nothing to worry about, and 67 degrees for the GPU. Again, pretty normal for an RTX 4080. So basically, it can handle top tier gaming components with relative ease. I didn't ever get any thermal throttling on the GPU or CPU. Is it the best case in the world when it comes to airflow? Probably not. I mean, it's still a glass box, but you can do a lot worse in the fish tank category. NZXT H5 Ton Elite. I'm looking at you. Yeah, I like it. It's a great follow-up to the Y60. I think aesthetically the Y60 is still my favorite just because of that angled corner glass, but either way, the Y40 is a fantastic case and one that I'm sure will be very popular in 2023. Let me know what you guys think of it down below in the comments. If you want to check it out, I'll have links down below in the description to both the Y60 and the new Y40. Drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you all in the next one.